So you might be wondering what I'm doing back in the Dr. Cliff Show studio with different furniture. Hey guys, welcome back to the DrCliffAuD vlog. This is vlog number 176, and if you haven't guessed it by now, you may have noticed that I'm sitting in the Dr. Cliff Show studio with different furniture because that's right, we are bringing the Dr. Cliff Show back. But before I get into specifics about the show, if you could do me a huge favor, hit that like button. Really lets me know that you want to see the Dr. Cliff Show come back. And if you are not yet subscribed to the channel, go ahead and do that as well, and make sure that you hit that notification bell. With that out of the way, greatly appreciate it. And let's talk about kind of like what happened with the Dr. Cliff Show. So if we go back almost a full year at this point, I want to say our first episode was in like August or September timeframe, where we finally got around to launching a podcast show, a video podcast show. I was wanting to do it before COVID hit, and then COVID kind of came along and there was nothing that we could do. Like, we couldn't get together, have a show, or at least it just didn't feel like the right time to launch the show. And then it took a couple of years before I found someone who I could bring onto the show to where we could have some banter back and forth, and that was Dr. Rachel Cook. And so we started the show together. And we had Kelsey, who was my extern at the time. Kelsey is now Dr. Beck. She has graduated. She is a full-fledged audiologist, and she would come onto the show to do Q&A. And the show started as a live show. And when we were going to first start it, we weren't going to do it as a live show. We were just going to record the show and then have it edited by an editor and then post it on our channel like once a week. And the logistics of actually doing that were a little bit more complicated than what I thought they were going to be. And so we ended up deciding to reach out to Chris Weir of 2 Second Media and have him come out and be like the director for the show, and then make sure that the show was able to go live at 4:00 p.m. on Wednesdays. And it took a lot of weight off of our shoulders of trying to figure out how the heck we were going to actually do this live video podcast. And it really was his idea to go live on it. We were going to have it be pre-recorded, but nonetheless, the opportunity was there to take the show live. And we thought that was a really cool concept because then people could interact with us live on the show, and it just seemed really exciting. The thing that was not exciting about it was the cost of the show. So putting on that show every week, I want to say, is a little north of $1,000 per episode. And so in order for us to run that show, we had to get sponsors for the show. Now, I'm not opposed to having sponsors. I have sponsors on the regular channel for the videos that I create for them. But it's kind of weird to plug sponsors in a podcast. I know that it's common. The way that you have to go about it, it seems much more like marketer style, or I don't know, kind of more advertising than what I like my sponsor plugs to be in my regular videos. And so, but it was a necessary evil. Like, we had to do it, and we only brought on sponsors that we like, so that wasn't the issue. But there was a lot of pressure to find sponsors, to see if they wanted to stay on for another quarter, if they'd be willing to pay a little bit more money so we could break even on doing the shows, and it was just a lot of stress associated with it. But the show actually ended up getting some traction. There was a lot of people who were very committed followers outside of just my parents. And so it was nice. We enjoyed doing it. It was nice to come over here on Wednesday, kind of close up a little bit early on Wednesday afternoon, get over here and do the show. But there was a lot of prep work that went into it. It was a much more scripted show than what we really were thinking about it being from the beginning. We were going to have it be much more of kind of just like a casual banter back and forth about audiology-related topics, maybe certain cases that we saw in the clinic that week or the week prior, whatever the case may be. And it's ended up being something where it took like hours worth of prep to get each show done the right way, because we had different segments we had to put in. We wanted to have the Hearing Up Provider Spotlight, which we may still end up doing on the Dr. Cliff Show that we bring back. But there was just a lot of logistical concerns with all the prep that went into it, and not to mention all of the logistical issues that we had with having the shows actually go live, with the stream, with the internet, making sure that we had good audio with the people that we were interviewing on the show, if they were virtual. So there's just a lot of things that really kind of took some of the fun away from it. And then on top of that, you had the financial burden of it all. So when you kind of like combine all of that together, it was like, hey, if we're not able to just kind of like walk in, knock out a show, have fun doing it, not have a lot of stress surrounding it, then what are we doing it for? And so we ultimately decided to kind of take a little bit of a break and figure out, well, what the heck do we want to do? Do we just want to cancel the show entirely? Do we want to bring it back in a different format? You guys maybe remember hearing me talk about this maybe a couple months ago. And we decided to basically cancel it. So we canceled the show and we decided to kind of regroup, give it a little bit of a break, let us kind of, come to grips with the fact that the show is not going to continue on in that particular format. But then, as I was coming over here recording vlogs. I've been recording content for hearingloss.com and the other part of the studio back here. And it just got to the point where I was like, okay, I really want to do something with this space. But I want this to be more of a relaxed, kind of casual conversation, maybe a little bit more fun, less rigid. And when I brought this concept back up with Dr. Cook and Dr. Beck, they seem really on board with the idea. Like, let's have an overall theme of the episode that we're doing, but let's not structure it. Let's not try to not necessarily script everything, because we didn't really script everything, but we had our bullet points and we would flow from point to point. And everything, we had to have, pre-show and all of that to get ready for it. We had to have a bunch of graphics that we got to put in and make sure that we had these overlays and all of that. And I'm like, I just don't want to do any of that. Plus, we're busy. We're also audiologists running the clinic here in Phoenix. And so we didn't want to take a ton of time to put the show together, but there was enough demand to have us kind of in that format based on you guys. You telling me this in the comments. You liked the show. You like certain aspects of the show. There were certain aspects that you didn't like. So we're going to try to learn from that experience and give you guys the things that you like and take away the things that you don't like. So here's what's going to happen. We are coming back with the Dr. Cliff Show Unscripted. And so based on the name, you can tell that we are not going to come in with any formalized script. We're going to have a concept. We may have a few main talking points that we want to talk about, but we will not have everything broken down into nice little segments. There's going to be times where we completely go on tangents, and hopefully you guys enjoy that. I guess we'll find out, because you'll leave me comments and feedback in the comment section. But I think it's going to make it easier for us to do the show. And on top of that, we're not going to do it live, at least not yet. So one thing that I learned over the course of the last year is that going live is very difficult. But I've also learned about how all of that works. And so I'm not saying that we can't go live on the show. It's just much harder to do so. So what we're going to do is we're going to have a 3-camera setup. We're going to record everything. We're going to record the audio. We're going to have an editor work on it over the course of the weekend, because we're probably going to film on a Thursday or a Friday. Have the editor edit it over the weekend and then publish it the following week. And then you guys can leave questions, comments, whatever, and then we can address some of those that next week, right? So I think that there's still going to be some opportunity for engagement on the show. It just won't be done in real time. With all that said, the cost of it becomes substantially less. So instead of spending well over $1,000 per episode, we'd be spending maybe $100 per episode to actually produce this thing. Yes, I have to spend a couple $1,000s in camcorders to be able to run for the show. But ultimately, the cost of that is totally okay, considering that we're not spending all of these different production costs every single week for every episode. And honestly, we can pretty much get away without having sponsors, unless we decide we want to bring on a sponsor or two, but not like 4 sponsors like we were doing before. I just felt like that was too many sponsor plugs to do inside of an episode. And if a sponsor wants to sponsor it, I want them to get a good attention from it as well. On top of that, we don't want the format, because the previous format was running between 45 and 60 minutes long, which for a lot of people is like, that's just too long. So we're going to try to keep it in that 25 to 30 minute range. I think that that's kind of the sweet spot with where we want the show to be. and make it more watchable. I still think it allows us to have enough content where we can go in and take out like little 1 to 2 minute chunks and post them on YouTube Shorts and TikTok and Instagram and all of that and Facebook. But there'll just be a little bit less content to choose from for that. The other thing that we want to do is, because this is kind of like a happy hour show where we're kind of like, we're done at the office, it's 4 o'clock for us, get over here, start filming maybe at 4:30. We're probably going to have a drink of the week, whether it's, you know, a glass of wine, whether it's a new IPA, whatever it is. We're going to kind of have a drink of the week. It's not always going to be an alcoholic drink. It could be a kombucha, heaven forbid a kombucha. But basically, we're going to rotate who gets to pick what drink for what week. And the rule is that whether you like it or not, you have to drink it and give your take on what it was like, right? But the concept of the show is staying hearing loss, hearing treatment related. Don't worry about that. I also want to bring on guests. You know, the format, as you can see here, as I spin around, is that we got a chair over here. A couch over here and a chair over here. So that will probably be, in most cases, the chair that I sit in. Of course, you know, if it's Dr. Beck, if it's Dr. Cook, who's kind of leading the show in any particular week, because I might not be here every single week to do the show. But it gives us nice space for 3 spots. If 2 to 3 of us are on the show every week, or 2 of us and a guest, we've got room for all of that. But this kind of lends to more of just a casual type of a vibe for the show. So looking forward to that. It'll be nice to sit down on a nice cushioned chair rather than a little bit more rigid chair like we were using for the podcast with the desk in front of us. It's going to be, like I said, a lot more laid back for this particular show. But nonetheless, let me know what you think. If you think that this format is going to work, give it a thumbs up on this video. Leave me some notes or comments in the comment section of what you would like to see the show become. If some of the things that I've just said, you're like, Cliff, that's dumb, don't do that, then we'll take that into consideration as well. But, you know, my thing is, I always want to test something for long enough. We got into the Dr. Cliff show, the original Dr. Cliff show, about 30-some episodes, long enough for us to realize that that's not the direction that we wanted to take it going forward. And honestly, if it wasn't for all the glitches that we had with being able to go live, we'd probably still be doing the show in that particular format. But I think it may be a blessing in disguise, because I think that we can get be a lot more interesting in this format than what we were in the previous format, even though the other format had some really good content in it. And if you have not seen those shows, I would recommend that you go back and actually watch them, because I'm actually really proud of all the work that was put into those, not by myself, but by Dr. Cook and by Kelsey as well, or by Dr. Beck as well. She just got her doctorate like a couple months ago, still struggling to not call her Kelsey and call her Dr. Beck, because you know what? She's earned it. Nevertheless, that is it for the vlog this week, guys. Again, if you like this vlog, make sure that you give it a thumbs up, and as always, I'll see you next week.